so often in sales, we jump straight from what does someone need to know to what they need to do, who we are and what makes us human and how we connect to others. Then I don't know whether there's going to be a role for sales in the not too distant future. The one thing that matters was decision confidence, confidence in their own ability to make the best decision on behalf of their organization.
Welcome to the Selling from the Heart podcast on the From the Heart Business Network. You've joined a global movement of sales professionals who are dedicated to being authentic and building trust. We call it Selling from the Heart. Together, we're on a mission to bring sincerity and substance to the sales profession we all love. Get ready to be inspired and equipped as we join our hosts Larry Levine and Daryl Amy.
Hiring salespeople based on a resume or a great interview is like drafting players based on their Instagram highlights. They look amazing in the clips. That's until the real game starts.
Exactly. Every CEO's been there. The interviews go great. You think you're bringing a top performer onto your team, but once they hit the field, they can't close, won't prospect, and blame the leads.
That's exactly why we recommend Sales Index Unlimited Candidate Assessments. It's your sales recruiting engine that screens every candidate against 21 proven sales competencies, benchmarked against 2.5 million sales professionals worldwide. That is more than a personality profile. You'll know with confidence who can sell and who will actually do the work.
Because the best teams don't just fill positions, they build a bench. They're always scouting for great players who can perform under pressure.
For just $2.99 a month, you can build your own bench of ready-to-sell talent, coachable, driven, and proven before they ever get the jersey.
So stop guessing. Start scouting like a pro.
Go to unlimited.salesindex.ai. That's unlimited.salesindex.ai and start building your next sales all-star team today. Hello and welcome back to the Selling from the Heart podcast. Your co-host, Daryl Amy, here today with Larry Levine. What's going on, Larry?
Hey, what isn't going on? It's always great to see my dear friend, Daryl Amy. We're in for a treat today. Let me tell you, everyone, we're in for a treat with our guest, Daryl.
This is going to be dynamite. We're going to be frame making today. And you go, what's that? Well, just trust me. You want to stick around for this. This is going to be amazing. Our friend Karl Schmidt is with us in the studio today. We've got so many great things going on, but the best thing going on at Selling from the Heart is the people. Everywhere we look, everywhere we go, we get to meet new friends, and it's all a part of this growing community of sales professionals that are saying, hey, selling from the heart, that's me. That's me. I believe in building trust. I believe in being genuine, being authentic. So shout out every week. We love giving a shout out to one of our friends.
Yeah, and this week, I just have to give a shout out to Armando Navarro. What a great guy here in Southern California where I hang out. You know, what I really like about Armando, and he just told me this the other day, he goes, when I wake up in the morning, I cannot wait to get out in the field and start making it happen. And his most importantly, everyone, hear this one out. He goes, I love making cold calls.
All right. Come on,
good.
Armando.
Armando,
That's
you're
awesome.
my type of guy. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Cheering you on. Well, hey, today's guest helps sales professionals answer one of the most important questions in modern selling. And that question is this: how do customers actually make decisions? Karl Schmidt is the co-founder of A2B Insight, where he works with organizations to improve sales performance by aligning their approach with the way buyers truly think, evaluate, and choose. With an incredible background at firms like Boston Consulting Group and Gartner, Karl has led award-winning research across B2B sales, marketing, and communications, including work connected to one of my favorite all-time books, The Challenger Sale. His insights have been featured in the Harvard Business Review and Forbes, helping companies navigate increasingly complex buying environments. And I think that is an understatement right there. Karl is the co-author of the book, The Framemaking Sale, a powerful framework that shows how sales professionals can guide customer thinking, not by pushing products, but by shaping how problems and possibilities are understood. Karl, welcome to Selling from the Heart. It's so great to have you here.
Great to be here. I'm so grateful for you guys having me.
That's our pleasure.
It is going to be a fun conversation about frame making. And as we get started, though, Karl, I want you to put some framework around this question we ask every guest on the show. And that is, what does selling from the heart mean to you?
Yeah, so this is where I should acknowledge up front two things. One, I often get described as a recovering strategy consultant because of my time at BCG and Deloitte and elsewhere, which isn't necessarily a field known for heart, I guess would be a good way to put it. And second, my formal education are a couple of really quant heavy degrees from University of Chicago. Again, both an institution and fields that aren't necessarily known for heart either. But when it comes to what we're talking about here, especially the most recent research and what led to the Framemaking Sale, it really does get into the core of how we're all wired as humans. Like just not only what motivates each of us, what we need in terms of our psychological purpose and motivations, but also what, especially now with so much complexity in all these decisions, how much the sense of belonging and being connected to others really is so key for any of us to feel accomplished, successful, even any degree of joy or contentment in our lives. And again, whether we're a seller and what we need to feel in order to kind of feel fulfilled in what we do, but I'd argue even more importantly, the customers we work with, there's such an opportunity to provide those same benefits to them. And so this idea of not just the ROI calculator on whether everyone's going to win from a dollars and cents perspective, but how our psychological needs are met is so at a core of not only all this research, but what the role of sales kind of has to be going forward.
Mhm.
Otherwise, can't AI bots in some way do the job more efficiently and cheaper? Right. So if we don't tap into that, who we are and what makes us human and how we connect to others, then I don't know whether there's going to be a role for sales in the not too distant future.
Oh, I know we're going to get into a really good conversation here, Karl, and I want to continue down this road because I'm sitting here listening to what you're saying. I think it's more important than ever before because regardless of what people may think, is we're just devoid of trust. It's a rampant epidemic. It's just the opportunity that sales leaders, salespeople, even executives have straight across the board. Doesn't matter what you're selling. Expand on this even more because I think of the word care and out care and return on care as I'm listening to what you're saying. You just got to peel some of this back.
Yeah, so let me build on the trust comment first before getting into the care idea, because if we think about trust, and there's so much great academic research and the psych led as well as the more recent work in neuroscience around all this stuff. But at the core, who do we trust? We trust people like ourselves, right? I mean, like if you think about some of the dynamics, and of course, authenticity matters. There's all these dynamics that go into the trust equation, no doubt. But especially if you if you think about it through the lens of our buyers, what do buyers want to hear? Do they want to hear from us and our expertise? What they really want to hear is people like themselves who have gone through the journey before and either avoided the potholes or figured out how to navigate over them. They're looking for people who are like themselves, and that's so often that similarity. And there's just been so much great research into those dynamics of how if we see someone who we see a common connection or a similarity or something we share, then that's so often the foundation of trust that allows us to then be helpful to them. But in the absence of that, then why would they listen to us at all? And again, so much of what you'll hear from me today is all based on the research into human psychology from a buyer's perspective. And that's what we as sellers need to make sure we're aligning with, right? Because again, if we're going to motivate any behavior, and this research is I just touch on whether it was the work I did in sales, marketing, or communications, this fundamental framework of what do you need to know, what do you need to feel, and then what do you need to do. And so often in sales, we jump straight from what does someone need to know to what they need to do, and completely miss that critical element of what we need to feel. And that's where the care and the trust comes into play, because without that, you can't actually drive that behavior change. The research is pretty clear. It just doesn't happen the way we'd like it to.
That is so powerful. Just that simple progression. It makes so much sense, right? Know, feel, do. And yeah, we have so many deals now that are stuck in the pipeline. The data is horrible about that, where I think the buyer knows. I mean, they made it, initiated a sales process, or at least took a sales call, but we have a lot of people not making the bridge to do. And that's what I love about your research and what you're doing into this question of how people actually make decisions, because you could define sales. The job of sales is to get people to make decisions. So, I mean, it's our comp plan, basically. Don't get comped if they don't make a decision. And so I'm curious, when you think about all of the decision, and we talk a lot about in sales about the decision-making process. They're in the middle of the decision-making process. What is it? And what are you learning from the research?
Yeah, and this is where, and again, pulling back to that no, feel, do. The question is then, well, we've spent so much time studying what does a buyer need to know, like about us, about the competition, about their own challenge, their problem, range of solutions. Again, very over-indexed on that, right? And we all know what we want them to do, which of course is buy our solution, right? The real gap, and this is research that we started that actually led to some of the information that we shared in the Challenger customer book, where we really went deep into, well, what is that emotional aspect? And that's where, when we opened this Pandora's box, we were afraid that, man, if you study human psychology, I think our first study, we had like 160 different emotions we got after to figure out what was correlated. Because we always it's always way too much. Anyway, as we whittled it down and focused on what actually mattered, it turned out that there was one factor that was the single biggest driver of what we characterize as a high quality, low regret deal. So that deal where the customer didn't settle for the cheapest option or status quo, the one where they really went after that ambitious win-win type scenario.
Yeah.
And it turned out that when we really studied, excuse me, that is the outcome, the one thing that matters was decision confidence. Confidence in their own ability to make the best decision on behalf of their organization. So it's really not confidence at all in the supplier. It's honestly supplier agnostic. It's self-confidence. And that's the thing that fortunately it dominated all the other variables so absolutely that we weren't needing to worry about, all right, well, all the different ways that we're all motivated as humans. It turns out there's one lens that all of our focus has to be on, which is how do we help customers make a decision with confidence, and what are the things that influence that? And that's the fundamental idea of the whole book, because if you look at the commercial impact, literally this has a 10x impact on the likelihood of that high quality, low regret deal, right?
Wow.
And we studied, I don't know how many variables by the end we pushed through our models to test this. And for example, the Challenger stuff still works, still very good, very strong. Those were generally in the range of between 1.5, maybe as much as 2x. And so again, those behaviors by a seller are important and can move the needle. But if we think about what really is the game changer, is this ability to create that self-confidence in your buyers, both individually, but also collectively as a buying group.
Yeah.
And so that's the cool, like everything we would not have, I wouldn't have left what I was doing. Brent wouldn't have quit his job. We wouldn't come together to write this thing if we didn't feel like, hey, so much of the world of sales and both buying and selling, just kind of walking past this absolute critical thing that we all can do so much better and honestly help each other along the way.
Wow.
Oh, so this is good. So walk us through, like, I'm thinking of encouragement here. So encourage the sales professionals and the leaders out there. What could they do when they're meeting with all these decision makers and these influencers, and you're all sitting around the table, whether it's face to face or virtually? How could we come alongside and encourage them on how to build this confidence?
Yeah, and this is where there's probably one bit that, again, maybe if there's one thing people remember from this conversation, it's likely going to be this, and it's the idea of, it's what we call the frame-making mindset. And this was first inspired by, at the time he was a commercial leader, a head of sales at a company called Expedient, who are in the cloud computing space. Anyone who's read the book will already probably know the story, so I'll try and give you the short version. But bottom line is, at one of their big sales kickoffs, he said, our one goal, the one thing we need to do as a commercial team, sales, subject matter expert, success, build 9 yards, is to help our customers make the best decision they can in as little time as possible. Now, since then, he's now their CEO, so obviously he's had tremendous success in his career. But at the core of everything we're talking about in terms of this new perspective, this new posture for sales, focused on this idea of how do we help a customer make the best decision, right? Not how do we help them buy our thing, right? At the core is helping them make the best decision and then be confident in it. Okay, so this is at the core of this entire mindset. But I really need to call out what, and again, this was someone raised their hand that first time Brian shared this, and we got to hear it. Was someone, of course, raised, well, Brian, this is all good. I love the idea of helping customers. This feels good, feels like a good thing to do. But what if the best decision isn't for them to buy from us? What if it's to stick with the status quo or buy from the other guy? And Brian's like, yep, sometimes that's going to happen. But that's why the second part of this phrase is so key, of in as little time as possible. Because, Brian will tell you, and he told them at the time, no one hates to lose more than me, right? But if I'm going to lose, I want to lose early, where I haven't wasted months, quarters, years pursuing some deal, when actually the best thing for that customer is actually to do something else. And maybe they're just not ready for our solution. Right? Maybe they don't have the right infrastructure in place. Maybe there's something fundamental that they need to put in place before we really would be the right solution for them. But if we help them make that decision now and do it quickly, who are the first people they're going to call when they are ready? Especially if we give them guidance, say, hey, these two things, when you get those in place, then let's talk, right? But for now, we're probably not the best answer for you. I can say from my early days in consulting, the clients that I told what I couldn't do, here's the things that, yep, we can be good at this, but these other things probably get a better path. Just the degree of trust and the fact that, I was looking out for both of our best interests. This was truly a win-win. Again, it just fundamentally puts us on the same side of the fence. We're trying to solve a problem together and discover the best path forward, rather than being viewed as, no, this person is just going to keep promoting what they're selling and not really trying to help me solve my problem. And it's that fundamental mindset shift that helping customers make the best decision they can is at the core of all what we're finding is most effective.
What if every rep on your team got a personalized coaching audio message from Larry Levine every morning based on their individual strengths and growth areas?
That's what we're excited to tell you about, daily audio coaching powered by Sales Index. Each rep gets a short, practical coaching session from me they can listen to on their way to work or in between calls.
It's not generic training, it's personalized micro coaching that helps your reps make small gains every day that add up to big results.
Big things happen when your reps take effective action every day.
Learn more about how it works and get started at salesindex.ai. Yeah, so powerful. So frame making. Help us put a frame around the framework of frame making. How many times can I say frame in the same sentence?
Oh yeah, when I was writing the first draft of Chapter 8, which is where we kind of get into the how you act, the very specific details, the minutia around how you create framing and the different range of framing with and without a framework and all the structure and all that gets really technical real fast. So I'll spare your audience of all that. But at the basics, what it comes down to is our customers are struggling right now around a whole range of different challenges to navigate purchases, right? Fortunately, those kind of boil down to 4 that we found to be the most critical ones. And all 4 of those represent a set of complexity that the customer is going to struggle with in one way or another. And so the question is, how do you help that customer manage that complexity, right? How do you give them the confidence that, hey, I've got this, I can get through this. I've learned what other people like me have done, and now I can make it happen. And that's this idea of framing, because by framing, you're not telling them the answer, you're not prescribing, you're not saying, hey, based on my 20 years, this is what you need to do. And I think when, one of the things that really kicked off the book was some prior research into sense making. I know you guys did a prior episode with Brent covering a lot of that. But core to that is the idea there's kind of three primary postures of how we give information to customers. One is we just give them. It's sort of this indiscriminate generosity. It's like, hey, if you want a white paper, I got 4 more things to give you, right? There's the teller, right, who's like, no, hey, I've been doing this for 20 years. Here's exactly what you should do. And then there's the sense maker, and it's the sense maker that is the one who just kind of takes all that complexity and creates a frame around it in ways that enables that customer to make the decision for themselves with confidence. And underpinning all this are the 2 key things that allow us to have confidence in our decisions. There's actually 4 total based on the cyclet, but only 2 of them really sales can do anything about. And those are ease, which of course we all know, hey, we want to make things easier for our buyers, right? So ease is one. And the telling model really ramps up ease. So it's, you can see why that might be successful. The indiscriminate giving, where you say, hey, you asked for 1 thing, I gave you 5. That ain't making it easier on your customers, right? Nope. And so you kind of see why the giving fails because of that. But the thing that none of us are talking about is this idea of agency or autonomy. It's a sense that we have to feel like we're in control, that we have a capability of doing this thing. And that's where telling fails, because telling undermines that agent. It's like, I'm going to tell you what to do, right? And that's very different from me feeling the confidence in my own abilities to do it. And that's where, by framing up a decision where they can construct how to progress and see themselves on that journey, that's where you can achieve both ease and agency. So does that, again, this is all very conceptual. Happy to share some examples that may make it a little more concrete if that would be helpful. But let me pause there. Is that all? More we'd like to talk about that before we get into some concrete, how this actually plays out in practice?
No, actually, there's a word I'm thinking of that's near and dear to me, and it's a C word. It ends with a Y, and it's clarity. And I got some clarity on this, but what I'm sitting here listening to what you're saying, and I think if we as sellers, leaders, want to help our buyers with confidence, that means not only do we have to make things crystal clear in how we communicate, but you have to help them become crystal clear on how they communicate to themselves. So I'm thinking, as I'm sitting here listening to what you're saying, I got somewhere there's clarity just rolling across the screen right now.
I couldn't agree more, because all of this is, we need to help those customers kind of construct the knowledge for themselves. It's sort of an old Piagetian concept, but in terms of just how we all learn as humans. But when it comes to this whole aspect of what it is that gives us that clarity, that kind of takes the complexity and uncertainty and all the dimensions that things can be confusing, and again, frames it up in a way. No, it's not an infinite number of things I need to worry about. There's 4, right? It's kind of the classic checklist. That's a great example of this type of framing, right? So, I may think, boy, it seems like there's an infinite number of things to worry about across my buying journey, right? If we can advise a customer and say, you know what, working with other customers like you, if they were here, they would tell you, yep, there's a whole lot of things you're going to need to do, but these are the 3 things that matter most, right? It's framing up what could seem overwhelming or too complex in a way that, and again, I often use checklist examples because they're one of the simplest forms of framing, but there's something that we can all apply all the time. And especially if we add a little bit of the nuance of, hey, you know what? And of those 3, here's the one that people often miss and get them in trouble, right? And that's where core to frame making is what we call the 2 active ingredients, which are prompting and bounding. So bounding is not an infinite number of stuff. It's really these 3. So again, you're making it a little bit more manageable. You're making it a little smaller. Prompting is here's the one you might miss on your own, right? So if you weren't aware, if you didn't have a peer or friend that had been down this path before, I'm going to be the virtual connector. I'm going to be as the seller. I'm not telling you from my expertise. I'm connecting you with the experience of people like you that then you can hopefully take advantage of. And here's something they would tell you that they missed and that they would encourage you to think about, so you don't suffer those same challenges. So again, does that kind of help with, because again, I think your point of clarity and how we're helping someone really construct that knowledge in a confident way, so they can so they can adopt the behaviors we're all hoping they do. But if we're not doing this through a lens of confidence in terms of what they need to feel, they're just not going to get there.
I love it. Well, as we Just what an amazing conversation. I'd love to hear a real world example of how this is playing out as we wrap this amazing conversation up. So, Karl, what's a great story you could share to help us frame this up?
And this is probably the single story we tell the most, and it's a story of a seller, a top performer, going out to do an early stage call at a prospect, and her manager's doing a ride along, and the manager's the one who originally shared the story with us, but they get to the meeting, and I'll give you the real brief version, knowing we're running low out of time. But they get there, things are starting, and then all of a sudden, procurement walks in, right? And now again, this is this and the manager, and tell it from the manager's perspective. I can't bring the same drama that Brent does to these, but I'll do my best. The managers are like, well, I don't know where this person came from, but let's see. Tara is how the name we've given to the seller, although that's a bit of a fictional creation because the name's been lost in time. But we'll call her Tara for the purposes of this. Tara, didn't seem to miss a beat, right? And the manager was so impressed by how he handled what seemed to be this out of the blue shock of this early stage conversation. Procurement's there, right? And by the end of the meeting, it's gone really well. And procurement and the sponsor, the champion for the deal, that customer mobilizer, they're just comparing notes, talking about what needs to happen next. They couldn't be getting along better, right? And so they're doing the classic debrief in the rental car on the way back to the airport. And the manager's like, wow, I was so impressed how well you handled that. But I got to say, I was really shocked when procurement walked in. How would they even know the meeting's happening? And this is where Tara told him, well, they were there because I suggested to my client, to the main contact, that working with other customers like you, so often procurement comes in late and blows things up. And what those customers have told us is the procurement actually probably has the best perspective of anyone of how to navigate a purchase like this through through any given organization. And so if one of those customers is here to advise you themselves, they'd say, you know what, probably good to include procurement early. And so I started doing that. And the manager's first reaction was, why? What? I mean, he's like, oh yeah, that's kind of genius. And we should all do that, right? And that's kind of at the now. You notice there's not some fancy framework here. This is just a simple nudge, but it's reframing what the role of procurement can and should be, especially in a deal where your customer has never bought something like this before, right? They're going to need help navigating their internal organization, and in many ways, who knows that better than procurement? So logically, it makes tons of sense, but hopefully that highlights some of the aspects, because it's a little bit of that prompting of, hey, have you thought about when you want to involve procurement in this? It's a little bit of bounding of saying, hey, we don't need everybody in the room at this early stage, but one person you might miss left to yourself is procurement. And it's that kind of opportunity of how we as sales can take advantage of working with so many customers to help make a particular customer's life that much easier, that much better. Because again, we're on this planet together, right? At the core, this is all a human story of how we all can get along and hopefully make our lives a little bit easier and better. And this is just like a really small example of that in action. So hopefully that gives some context to a lot of the concepts that we've talked about so far.
Oh, this is wonderful stuff. Thanks for hanging out with us, Karl.
Great. Really appreciate being here.
Well, hey, the link to the book, The Framemaking Sale, is in the show notes. But I know our listeners are thinking the same thing. I'm thinking, and Larry's thinking, how do we get more Karl Schmidt in our lives?
Well, probably easiest is to find me on LinkedIn. We do have both the Framemaking Sale website, where most of the information about us, and all our contact information is there as well.
Right.
And that's probably the simplest way for anyone who wants to reach out and talk more framemaking.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for putting this book together. Your generosity of sharing your time and your stories with us today. Spectacular. Thank you, Karl.
No, really appreciate it.
Awesome. What an amazing conversation. It's trying. I'm sitting here going, we talk. That's that thing that's we say as sales professionals all the time. They're in the decision-making process. Well, how much thought do we actually give to the decision-making process? And Karl has laid out something here that is incredibly powerful. I want to encourage everyone to grab a copy of this book, and let's I'll leave him a review and cheer Karl and our friend Brent on in this. But what an amazingly powerful conversation. It comes down to a lot of simplicity about make it easy, give them agency.
Yeah, it's about simplicity. It's about confidence. And I got to flip the script on this because I love the story that Karl shared at the very end. And I want sellers, regardless of what you're selling, just to maybe go back and just rewind this to where Karl shared that story is if we know certain people are going to be involved in our deals from past experience, encourage them to be in that meeting because, A, we're big fans. If you slow things down, you actually speed things up. Get these people, be proactive just based on your experience and how you frame up these first meetings. Get these people involved in the meetings. Don't wait till later on.
Super powerful. What a great conversation today. Guess what? We got lots of great conversations lined up for you. So make sure to like or subscribe. Thank you to everyone who's leaving reviews on this show. The audience continues to grow. We love hearing from you, and we're all together in this movement of authenticity and trust right here in this profession we all love.
Absolutely. I mean, we can't do this without you guys. We've been going strong on this podcast for almost a decade now. And if there's somebody out there that you haven't seen on the podcast and you want us to interview them, please let Daryl and I know. We always like bringing fresh voices, new ideas, and a different perspective, all to help you sell better.
Well, thank you for joining us this week. We are cheering you on. And until next time, keep being genuine, keep being authentic, keep building trust. Help your customers build a framework around their decisions. And most of all,
sell from the heart.